Hey everyone, welcome back to the Layback podcast. Today it's just me, it's just Adam, it's all you get. We're trying something a little different, and that's because I'm on the road. We had something scheduled for this week, but I think it will be a great episode. Don't want anyone to miss out on that. And with travel, everything going on with July 4th, figured I would release something solo. I'm going to try my best to keep it smooth, keep it comparable, good quality to everything else we're doing. But, so be it. We're going to live with the times. Today, I really want to run through the FlexPro Grip origin story. I figured that might be something good to go back to while I am riding solo, don't necessarily have someone I can bounce something off of. So why not just share our story, something that's unique, special to us. And then if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out and maybe we can go back to them at another time. A lot of this information is available if you have listened to me on other podcasts, on other mediums, or from other hosts, as well as a little bit on our website, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, different socials. But with what we're doing, we might as well kick it all the way back to my playing career, specifically in 2016. So my senior year of college at Eckerd College down in St. Pete, Florida, I had come off of a blown out shoulder. You've probably heard me mention that on here a few times before. I had surgery. I didn't plan on going back to Eckerd for my senior year. I was going to transfer to the University of San Francisco, play some ball out there. But sadly, when I blew out my shoulder while playing in Alaska, I figured going back to graduate and just move along was the best idea rather than lose a bunch of credits and try to figure that out. So went to Eckerd, graduated, took on an independent study to focus on performance training and take the initial steps of getting my CSCS, which is becoming a certified strength and conditioning specialist, because I figured at some point I would come to the crossroads of coaching or performance training or try to do a mixture of both. And I just figured getting a CSCS would accelerate that a bit for me, or at least push me in the right direction. So fast forward a little bit, I graduate in May and I got to figure out what to do. I'm trying to rehab. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go play for my fifth year. And my shoulder's not right. I can't throw. And yes, this has nothing to do with elbows. This is just a personal story, but you'll see how it all connects. I elect to go to New Orleans where all my family is. I've got a really good network there, and I've got a physical therapist I can work with who really helped me out early on, kind of when I was at a sticking point in my rehab in December, January. And now that I'm approaching a year out from surgery and still can't really throw, I felt like I was really struggling. I needed to figure something out. And since I was going to be in New Orleans rehabbing, I figured why not get some athletes to train alongside me. So that was the start of something we called the New Orleans Sports Performance Institute. We ran that initially with about 6 athletes, mostly high school. In fact, 5 were in high school, 1 was in college. And that was our first summer of training. I fortunately get healthy enough to perform in front of some schools. I could hit again. I ended up committing to the University of Dayton, but after a series of ups and downs with the shoulder, never really got right. I couldn't consistently stay on the field. And I did get healthy enough to play the following summer, so summer 2017. And even though I didn't get to compete on the field much with Dayton at all, maybe only a couple of games, I was fortunate enough to find a summer team that would take me on. I finally was able to get some consistent at-bats, but as a 5'11" first baseman, you don't really project well. So really had to focus on hitting, try to produce some numbers. Fortunately, I played well enough to garner some indie ball interest and just try to keep the ball rolling with my professional career, or the hopes of pursuing the professional career. Like I said, I was able to garner some indie ball interest, had a couple of contract offers, but I knew if I was going to pursue this game at the highest level, I needed to figure out how to become a shortstop, third baseman, maybe even a second baseman again. And first base wasn't going to be for me in the long run. So back to the training, go back to New Orleans, pick up NOSPI, the New Orleans Sports Performance Institute again, And this time around, got to find athletes, right? We can't run a full business with just 6 guys. Fortunately for us, a handful of that 6, I think it was 3 or 4, elected to stay on, continue training when I came back to New Orleans, but that doesn't make for a full business. Needed way more than just 3 guys, and that was kind of the start of it. Just had to find more and more athletes to come take a chance with what we were doing with NOSPI. So from there, started talking to some local junior colleges. Fortunately enough for us, Delgado Community College came on to train with us, and that is where a lot of the initial research or digging for FlexPro Grip came. We had a handful of high school kids, some local programs, and eventually we got to the point where we had well over 100 athletes in total in our first year. It was really exciting. It wasn't all at the same time to have 100, but we had 100 guys, male and female, buy in to train with us, mostly baseball, but we did have some softball, a little bit of basketball, a little bit of soccer, some other sports, but yeah, mostly baseball. So we were doing exactly what we intended to do. But we had this great testing piece with Delgado Community College. So we were able to get a ton of numbers, track these guys throughout the entire fall, and gauge how they were improving. And with me not being in the show and trying to figure out how I could leverage different things in my own career to be as good as I could be on the field, it was very natural to adopt a data analytics numbers approach to what we were doing. Just try to provide as much good, useful information as possible. So with everything we were tracking with Delgado, this theme of grip strength and its correlations to throwing velocity and exit velocity just became so prevalent. And I recall at the time I recalled, and then my business partner, Daryl, we were partners with NOSPI as well. Again, he is my father, for those of you who don't remember. So we did have a lot of back and forth in this, as well as some headbutting, but we figured it out. We're obviously still going strong, but regardless, we had a study that kind of kept coming up. We've mentioned it maybe once or twice on here. We've certainly written about it, but it was a study from a little league in Asia, actually. I apologize. I don't remember right now if it was Japan or Taiwan, but it was one of the two. And this little league did a bunch of testing on all their athletes. They had nearly 200 kids in the little league, and ages 6 to 16, there is a 0.91 correlation between grip strength and throwing velocity. And a 1-to-1 correlation is the correlation between breathing and being alive. So if you can kind of picture how powerful that is with prepubescent athletes, this 6 to 16 age group, throwing velocity and grip strength are as thick as thieves. They go hand in hand. They're glued together effectively. But then when we tested this theory with the Delgado Community College guys, so athletes 17 to 20 years old roughly, then we saw that correlation fall just a little bit. It fell to about 0.65. And our hypothesis surrounding that was, now that these athletes are post-pubescent, they've entered adulthood, we believe that the mechanics of the individual, or how they move, how they produce force, different things like that, how they coordinate themselves, all of that began to matter more rather than just pure force production. But 0.65 is still unbelievably high when it comes to correlations. So that always kind of stuck with us. As we continued to grow NOSPI, just more and more guys were coming in to see us that either wanted to throw harder, they had elbow pain, or a mixture of both. And again, this whole grip strength thing was always kind of sticking with us. We were talking to our network, whether it was the crew at Virginia Tech, Dr. Brolinson, who we've mentioned, Dr. Kozar, just so many people that were sending us research so we could learn more. the exposure to what was going on with ASMI, especially Dr. Glenn Fleissig and his crew. There was this theme that was just, it was unavoidable for us. There was a bit of discovery that we just couldn't let go of because there were so many things left unturned, especially when it came to the UCL and grip strength. Then we get through our first complete year with NOSPI. We're now in the spring of, gosh, what spring was that? I guess that was the spring of 2018. And we're just trying to get more athletes to come in to train with us for that summer. We ran kind of the standard velo program. We had athletes from all over the country come in. But for that first summer, or that first big summer for us when we were really trying to blow things up, we figured our best approach should just be to try to become the UCL guys. There was so much being done already with weighted balls and mechanics and shoulder health, back health, knee health. Eric Cressy had his sturdy shoulder program that he had been running for years, and it's great information. Driveline became the leader around this time. Top velocity was everywhere. People were trying to figure out the best way to utilize biomechanics, the best way to program throwing. And as a small entity run by a father-son team in New Orleans, we knew our only chance was to kind of find a niche and lean into it like crazy. So we elected to what we thought would be a, 4-week campaign, month-long campaign to really dig into why UCLs tear. We figured we'd write a couple blogs, read some articles, and just throw our take out there and just kind of spam the masses. What we quickly realized while we were taking on this mission to just learn information and spread information was that nobody had an answer as to why UCLs were tearing. And like I said, we just tried to do this to get more business to come into the New Orleans Sports Performance Institute. We wanted to learn and we wanted to support our athletes, but that's kind of where all of this started. We just wanted to know why UCLs tear. It was never about creating a device. Then 3 years later, we are then in Arizona working with the San Diego Padres, who were thankful enough to partner with in that early research. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where we are now. It's kind of funny. I'm wearing a San Francisco Giants shirt, but yeah, I mean, why not? It's a cool shirt, right? For anybody who's watching the first game played at Pacific Bell Ballpark. I can't let this thing go. But yeah, if it wasn't for the Padres, we wouldn't be where we are now. So a lot of stuff happened in that time. We continue to run NOSPI, but there was always this thing then in the background. We knew we needed to figure out why UCLs tear. It was already ravaging baseball. So back in 2018, I think, gosh, that might have been about 28% of all big league pitchers at the time had undergone a UCL surgery, whether it was Tommy John or reconstruction at some point in their career. And fast forward to today, and that number is almost 35%. It's over a third. It flutters kind of between that 34 and 35% mark right now, which is absolutely insane. But in between that kind of fall 2021 when we got started with the Padres and that 2018 when we made the discovery, or I guess the lack of a discovery, the discovery that nobody really had an answer, it just turned into all-out research for us. So much of our time was spent, especially when we weren't at the facility, was just scouring the internet, trying to read every article possible on the elbow, forearm, shoulder, throwing mechanics, how we can utilize the body to produce force, what the best positions are, the most advantageous positions, are there actually real mechanics, different things like that. It was the whole gamut. You name it, we tried to read it. We like to think we read every article that was published from 1995 to, I guess that was then 2020 at that point. Heck, I even took a sabbatical from NOSPI, the business that I was kind of the front man for as the lead performance trainer with the CSCS, doing all the programming. Yeah, I still did that stuff when I was on sabbatical, but I was no longer front facing with the athletes. I just put myself in a room for pretty much 3 months and just read every article I possibly could that was published by, whether it was ASMI, whether it was the research group out of Japan, Escamilla, Conti, the list goes on for all these articles. So now we have a bibliography of well over 200 articles. And if anybody has more or something they think we might not have seen, please send it our way, because this is still an ongoing process. But regardless, that's how we spent all that time between 2018 to 2021 to try to develop the most all-encompassing device to reduce the risk of UCL tears. So I guess I skipped over a piece. I guess this is the trouble of speaking by yourself at a screen into a microphone. But one of the big things, obviously, I said we didn't start on the mission to just create a device from the outset. We first needed to discover why UCLs tear. That was it. That was the mission. And once we kind of figured that out or had a good idea, we started asking ourselves, well, how do we prevent it? So then that's what inspired us creating the device. So you might be wondering, if you haven't seen everything we've done, why do UCLs tear? We're going to do it in the most basic form. UCLs tear because they cannot handle the load placed upon them. The UCL, just the small little ligament in our elbow, runs from the funny bone to the ulna. That's it in its most simple form. So that funny bone on the inside of your elbow to about 2 inches down on your ulna. So what can the elbow actually handle? We can break that down into 3 different components that handle the stress of throwing. One is the ligament itself. The ligament itself, the UCL, can handle somewhere between 30 to 40 Newton meters of force. Of course, most of the studies have been done on cadavers. So there is going to be a population which has a fair gripe that the UCL can handle a bit more than in a live body than what it can in somebody who is deceased, which is why we say up to 40 Newton meters, because most of the research would say somewhere between 34, 35 Newton meters of force in a cadaver. So yeah, we add a little bit to the top of that to appease anybody who might have a gripe. And to be fair, that we think that's very important to do. Then we have the structures on the back of the elbow. So where the radius and the humerus run into each other. If you think about the collision that happens during max layback or maximum external rotation of the shoulder, what's going to happen is, as the front of the elbow, or where the UCL is, as that stretches, there has to be a compression on the backside, or a collision. That bony collision, that joint on the backside where those bones actually meet, those will compress, and that can handle 25-ish Newton meters of force. If it's handling anything more than that, what that effectively means is that there's additional gapping on the inside of the elbow, the front side of the elbow, and that's not good. So we don't want the bony structure to be really handling more, because that means there's an issue on the opposite side. Now, the only other piece that can really handle this force is the muscle tendon units that overlay and support the UCL. So then, of course, we had to figure out which muscle tendon units are best positioned to do so. And the top 2, without a doubt, it's unequivocal, are the flexor digitorum superficialis, FDS, and the flexor carpi ulnaris, FCU. And then a third player is the FDP, the flexor digitorum profundus. The FDS controls flexion of the midfinger, so at the metacarpal joint, and then the proximal joint of your finger. So those first 2 joints of the fingers. That distal joint, or the last joint of the finger, controls fingertip flexion. That is your FDP. Your FDP is in charge of the fingertip. Then the FCU, if you can kind of picture chopping your wrist, throwing a breaking ball, or like a little royal wave side to side with your hand, that ulnar deviation, or pulling your pinky towards your wrist laterally, that is ulnar deviation. It's controlled by the flexor carpi ulnaris. The elbow as a whole can handle about 90 to 115 Newton meters of force when it comes to throwing a roughly 90 mile per hour pitch. Now, the pitch type doesn't matter so much, but that's roughly how much force a 90 mile per hour pitch produces. From there, we can just subtract out what each of the individual pieces of the elbow, those three that we mentioned, the UCL itself, the bony collision on the backside of the elbow, the radius and humerus running together, and then the muscle tendon units. We can subtract out what each of those three can produce from that 90 to 115 Newton meter number. If there's a remainder there, we have a problem, because it means those three structures didn't handle enough force. However, if that number goes negative in our simple arithmetic problem, that means we produced enough total force to withstand the forces of throwing. So, since we figured out which muscles are best positioned to support the UCL, and that's the only thing that can be trained of those three groups that we talked about, the UCL itself, the bony collision on the backside, humerus and radius, and then the muscle tendon units. We can only train the muscle tendon units. So why not create something that can assist in the training and the measurement of those muscle tendon units? That sparked the frantic energy, the sprint, the race. I don't know what words to put to it, but that sparked our devotion to building FlexPro Grip. We originally started with something that was effectively like J-bands, Jaeger bands for the fingers. We had little like bugle chip looking things that connected bands to it, and the intentions were all well and good, but truthfully, like, we couldn't measure anything, and that made it no better than anything else. We felt we could isolate the fingers or preferentially target the fingers in a certain way, but it just wasn't good enough. It wasn't going to move the industry forward. It was a cute tool or a good idea that just wasn't where it needed to be. So the next steps from there, I guess we can be thankful for COVID for this, because we went back to the drawing board. We knew we needed to measure force, calculate force, and give some objective feedback so athletes, coaches, trainers, physical therapists, doctors, any clinician, any parent, any athlete could have objective, usable information to actually help tell a story and assist in the progression or the rehab or the training of an individual. So that's kind of how this whole thing started for us. I know I rambled for a while, probably not the cleanest. I apologize. This is my first kind of full-length solo episode. The intro was 5 minutes, so this is a completely new take, but that kind of lays the groundwork for how we created FlexPro Grip and why we went on this journey. Then from there, we've added a handful of teams, a handful of players. Now we're represented by nearly 2/3 of all of Major League Baseball at this point, whether it's team partnerships or special projects or individual players who have taken it on. And we're grateful for that. We hope it continues to grow, because we're going to continue to share more information to help more players, more teams, more people. And beyond just what we're doing at the professional level, we're lucky enough to work with 6 teams that competed in the NCAA Division I World Series this year. The round is 64. And that was awesome. And we have more teams across college baseball, but seeing those 6 compete in the round of 64 was awesome. And then we work with high school, youth. It doesn't matter. If you throw a baseball, FlexPro Grip can be for you. But as you as the audience likely know, this is for serious athletes that really want to make a difference in their careers, whether it's to stay healthy, improve performance, or just kind of check the box, making sure they're doing everything they can, that they left no stone unturned. Guys, I think that's it for the day. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this. This might not be the cleanest listen, but hey, we tried. We got a banger of an episode coming out next week with Dr. Nick Serio from Velo U. Looking forward to sharing that with y'all. And hopefully you enjoy if it's a long weekend, that's great. If not, enjoy the day, enjoy July 4th, enjoy the day off. Hopefully this can provide some entertainment, and looking forward to checking in with y'all in the near future. To all the listeners out there, thanks for laying back with us.